Muhyiddin said preliminary discussions on the travel corridor between Malaysia and Indonesia have started at the working level and hopes that both sides can step up talks to work out the SOPs. We want to take a closer look into the arrangement. Is this viable as the number of COVID cases in both countries are still high? We speak to Oh Sun, Senior Fellow at the Singapore Institute of International Affairs.
Indonesia's population, it's about 7 times that of Malaysia, but its daily new cases is only about 3 to 4 times that of Malaysia. But Indonesia indeed has a higher COVID fatality rate, much higher than Malaysia. So again, depending on what measure of pandemic severity you are taking, it would appear that both countries could do more in suppressing their respective pandemic situations. If we are talking about just several senior businessmen traveling between Malaysia and Indonesia, that perhaps would be indeed feasible nowadays. But if you are talking about higher numbers of, for example, workers crossing borders from one country to another, I think that would have to be taken very, very seriously and carefully with a lot of, for example, pre-departure testing and then quarantine upon the arrival and so on. And both countries would have to be rather strict on that in order for the RGL to work.
How would this travel corridor shape up to be? Now, if you recall, in August, Singapore and Malaysia started a reciprocal green lane scheme to enable cross-border travel for essential business. But just last month, Singapore announced that it would suspend the travel bubble for Malaysia for 3 months.
Well, of course, this RGL would pale in comparison to the proposed RGL between Malaysia and Singapore, which would see, for example, many more people crossing the borders and so on. But still, I think this Indonesian-Malaysian RGL could be one of the test beds for not only these two countries, but for many other Southeast Asian countries to see whether indeed such an RGL could be maintained by means of both countries being extremely responsible in keeping its COVID pandemic numbers low. Frankly speaking, it's very difficult to permanently maintain an RGL because if the pandemic situation in either country rises significantly, the other country is, of course, very likely to suspend the RGL, right? So again, both countries would have to do a better job in suppressing its pandemic.